but AI can help you with that. So here's a thought. What you can do is, if the website is public and the menu is public, these days, you can just fire up ChatGPT, plug the website in, and say, go to this website of this restaurant, look over the menu. You know that I'm diabetic, so outline the top choices for me. And if it's category-based, add a little bit more detail. If it's preference-based, add a lot more detail. And if you just want it to get creative, then say, get creative and give me a couple options that you think empower AI to help you to come up with an idea or two. And you might just be really surprised. Now, there's some nuance there. Won't work every time. But again, let's think of like a restaurant where you click on a menu button and then it has a beautiful page where it has everything and it's got more details. More is more with AI.
Welcome to the Your Diabetes Insider podcast, where we take all of the mysteries of blood sugar control, focusing on nutrition, exercise, and any of the other 40 plus factors that may impact your blood sugar. If you don't know me, my name is Ben Zeal. I'm a registered dietitian, certified diabetes educator, strength and conditioning coach, and I've lived myself with type 1 diabetes for over 20 years. And I am here to share everything that I have learned in both my personal and professional experience so you can live that incredible diabetes life. So get ready and let's dive right into today's episode. All right, what is going on? Welcome to this episode of the Your Diabetes Insider podcast. And today we've got a special guest and we're going to go a little bit different of a direction in diabetes land. And we're going to actually zoom out a bit, go into healthcare as a whole, but also you've heard plenty about AI and how it seems to be in every crevice of every single thing we're doing. So I brought in an AI expert, Jim Carter. What's going on, sir?
Good to be here, man. Happy to have this chat with you.
No, this is going to be a lot of fun. And for those listening who don't know, Jim is an AI expert behind multiple businesses. He has worked with Verizon. He's worked with Tony Robbins. He's worked with Gary Vee. He is the guy that you call when you're like, hey, I need something with AI and I need an expert in the room to help build something incredible. So I'm really grateful to get to bring you in and express to the people how the landscape in healthcare is changing with AI, and just, you know, in diabetes too, there's so many applications that AI are able to bring to the table. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's dive in. So let's just jump right into it. Now, where do you feel that the listeners of this show really need the most support for like self-service support? Like where maybe they keep hearing they keep getting stuck. There's just things that they feel like, you know what, I've been meaning to try this AI thing, or maybe they're already doing it. And if they were to just try something like this, it could just give them a little bit of extra support. Like maybe we can just dive right in that way.
100%. And I'd say something that people with diabetes, and I'm sure people are listening can definitely empathize with what I'm about to say, but one major area I see in my practice is going to a restaurant. You go to a restaurant, and I talk about this all the time in different episodes, where you have to figure out the carbs, you have to figure out the protein, the fat, how that's going to influence your dosing if you're on insulin or your other medication. And the hardest part is you didn't make the food, right? You're not the one in the kitchen. You're not the one, throwing things into the pan. You don't know what's in it, but there's got to be ways. I know that there are some apps out there. There's got to be some ways where you can use AI to figure out and get a better idea without just having to estimate everything, because sometimes your estimations are way off in one direction or the other and your blood sugar goes crazy.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So let's run through a gold standard kind of common scenario, right? So for you, for anybody that has this need very commonly, run me through like a mock scenario. Do you decide you want to go to the restaurant ahead of time, or you just show up, or you do some research ahead of time? You sit down, you look at the menu, like kind of walk me through what that is, and let's unpack it and figure out some ways that we can use this.
Well, I'll say the tough part is obviously there's all the different scenarios you just laid out can all be possible, right? You've got times where you're driving with your friends, you're like, we're hungry, let's go here. And we just point at the corner and you go to that restaurant. But there's also the, hey, 3 days in advance, I know I'm going to this restaurant that's not a chain, that doesn't have nutritional info. And I know that I'm going to look at the menu in advance. These are all the things that, we would try to tell people if you can plan. But there's times where even if you plan, you have no idea what's getting put into this food. So you get a plate of, Italian sounds great right now. You get a plate of, carbonara pasta and, chicken Parmesan. And you're like, I have no idea what's in this. And a lot of people with diabetes will guess, right? They'll say, this is 78 carbs. And they have no idea. It could be 48, it could be 108, and they have no clue.
Well, AI is going to be there to support. It's not going to be a global fix for everything, of course, because of all the variables. But let's actually just think about ways that we can get everybody as close as possible to feeling better about being within ranges. So there's a couple things we can do. First of all, let's talk about the planning, scenario, right? I call you, I'm like, hey, Ben, we're going to be in the same town. Let's go grab dinner. Let's find a place, right? So typically you're like, all right, either you know a place, and in that case, you feel a little bit more comfortable, or maybe I recommend a spot and you're like, okay, alarm goes up. Let's make sure that I have some options. That way I'm not eating salad the whole time, right? So how do we go about that? Well, there's a couple ways we can do it. Obviously, the restaurant's likely going to have a website. If they have a website, they're likely going to have a menu. I know there's not always nutrition facts, not like on the back of a label, but sometimes they don't even write, is this gluten-free? Is it vegan? Is it vegetarian? So we kind of have to make some assumptions. But I would say the simplest way that we can start to make sense of that would be working with the menu. So if that restaurant has a published menu, you're probably thinking ahead, looking to see if there's something there. But my guess is that starts the anxiety meter. If I could be, I'm fortunate that I am not diabetic and I'm grateful for that, but I can only imagine that feeling of all of these extra layers that you have to go through. So I will correlate it to the fact that I am a father of two daughters, and that when I did have my kids growing up, we had similar anxiety, which is like, okay, are my kids going to be able to eat anything here? So I think I can kind of connect on that same feeling. And now it's like, well, if we have that menu, you have to scan. You have to go through, you have to look for things. You have to check for categories. You have to look to see if you see the little symbols, and you start to get stuck in this like paradox of all of the decision making that you have to do with this criteria in your mind. But AI can help you with that. So here's a thought, which you can do is, if the website is public and the menu is public, these days you can just fire up ChatGPT, plug the website in, and say, go to this website of this restaurant, look over the menu. You know that I'm diabetic, so outline the top choices for me. And if it's category based, add a little bit more detail. If it's preference based, add a lot more detail. And if you just want it to get creative, then say, get creative and give me a couple options that you think empower AI to help you to come up with an idea or two. And you might just be really surprised. Now, there's some nuance there. Won't work every time. But again, let's think of like a restaurant where you click on a menu button and then it has a beautiful page where it has everything and it's got more details. More is more with AI. So if you are faced with more, then why don't you lean into AI for the first time, or to try something a little different, and let's see if it can help you with relieving a little bit of that anxiety, taking some of the pressure off of the situation. And you're still in the driver's seat, but what it's doing is it's helping to separate the signal versus the noise. We want to get rid of all the noise, all of the obvious things that, AI is smart. It does understand the things that you can and can't eat. So let it start to isolate the best things. That would be my first shot at, like, if we're starting to plan, let's use it as a planning co-pilot. Let's just help you feel a little bit better about just really looking at the signal and not looking at all the rest of the noise that you don't want to have to think about.
Well, and I really like that you bring up the fact that we're just trying to simplify it and using it as a tool to help, because with diabetes in general, and if people listening may or may not know this fact, but you're making 180 additional decisions per day just to be able to keep your numbers in range and do the things you need to do. And that's an average. There's days your blood sugars go crazy, you feel like garbage, you're making additional beyond that. And so any way to take some of the thinking out of it, or to take just some of the mental load off, is critical. So with something like this, saying, hey, I don't know anything about this Italian food, but I now know here are some options that were designated as, hey, these could be reasonable. You still have to carb count. You still have to figure it out. But at least now you've narrowed it down, and, you have 5 or 6 options that, may be more blood sugar friendly. Now around here, we're always, hey, technically you can have anything. You can have tiramisu, you can have crazy pasta, but you have to be smart about how to do it. But I'm sure there's also similarities where AI could probably help with potentially portion sizes, or, hey, if you're having this, here are things to look out for, that type of thing as well, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. And that was going to be the next piece that I want to get into, which is, as you're walking me through this decision matrix of all of the micro decisions or even mega decisions that you have to make about your days, what's the next thing? So it's probably when you're seated, when you're actually looking at that menu. Now, hopefully, if you've been able to plan a little bit because they had the menu published ahead of time, you already have some ideas. So it's kind of cool to think about, right? Like, visualize this. You show up at the restaurant, you tell your guests, hey, hold on one second. I did a little research on the menu. I just want to see what was on my phone. You pull it up and you've got memory from what ChatGPT or anything else that you've used highlights it as like, yeah, you should look for these couple things. So now you've immediately been able to refocus on what you want to look for. What I would say from this point, and this can be done in a lot of different ways, right? So find yourself in the story is you can either then just have a really great conversation with the server. You probably identify like, okay, there's some things I can't have. A lot of times these, restaurants today, they ask about dietary restrictions and things like that, which is wonderful, but we don't always get that. Let's also talk about traveling international where that probably doesn't come up ever, right? So we have to fend for ourselves in some of these things. Now, there's a couple really cool ways we could kind of take this conversation. And again, I want you to find yourself in this story. If you really want to really lean into the tech and just see how far you can push this, you're my people. So I'm going to talk to you first. Now, there's some really cool tech that's out there. And let's just stay using ChatGPT as sort of our, again, kind of like our gold standard example of what we can use here. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually upload photos to ChatGPT. It actually accepts media, and that media can help with decision making. ChatGPT is so cool. I could take my phone, I could take a picture of our conversation right now and say, describe what's happening. And it'd say, you are on a virtual meeting with somebody who is wearing a hat, a black hat, like you're wearing a black hat. And, it's going to explain everything to me. I have to ask it. So think about the power of that. Like really think about the power of that for a minute. The fact that you have a tool in your toolbox, your purse, your pocket, whatever. And you can use it for all of this extra decision making, all of this extra context that maybe isn't readily available or readily top of mind, even just as part of life. So why not be at the restaurant, take a couple pictures of the key things on the menu, or if I don't know if this is a thing, but maybe it is, if you're a little bit more of an extrovert, you see somebody that has a dish that you think you might like, and you want to walk up and be like, hey, I don't want to bother you, but that looks really good. Thinking about getting that? This might be a little weird. Mind if I take a picture of that? I'm just throwing this out there, right? But again, find yourself in the story, like whatever makes sense to you, roll with it. But you could actually take those pictures, put it right back in the chat and say, help me come up with the best plan for how I can make this work for my diet. And then team it with the fact that ChatGPT and all these large language models, that's the technical term for what these are, they learn with you. So as you give it more information, it learns about you. I guarantee you that if you are using ChatGPT and you say you are diabetic, it's going to remember that, which means it's not going to suggest a bunch of stuff that is going to send you backwards. It's only going to get better and send you forward. And these are the inherent benefits of when you do want to use AI more and you're willing to lean into it, how it can truly make your life better.
Well, and it makes me curious too, because like you said, it's going to know, hey, I said, tell it I have diabetes. Now it knows I have diabetes. So that will influence decisions it makes. On the flip side, though, what I also don't want people thinking is that, cool, I can take a picture of this, I can enter in the menu. It's going to be perfect. I can trust it completely and it'll be 100% accurate all the time, because that's also a fallacy, similar to how, and whether, you heard of it or not, I know people listening have, some of the insulin pumps have algorithms that function based on the continuous glucose monitor. And based on that data, it says, hey, I need to be informed by, hey, my blood sugar is 200, it's too high, give it insulin, or, hey, my blood sugar is dropping, turn it off. And so that, of course, technology is not perfect at this point yet. So what would you say could be a potential shortcoming or something for people to look out for so they're not just blindly following the recommendations of the, just large model?
Yeah, I mean, this is always and forever going to be one of those caveat emptor kind of situations. Like just to use another one, like trust but verify. Like that's been used in many different ways, but it absolutely applies with AI, right? Because let's just zoom out and think about AI this way for a minute. A lot of people get this theme when people ask me, like, okay, really explain AI to me. Like what's happening, right? We don't have to get into that right now, but the follow-up question to that typically comes down to, okay, so is AI actually coming up with new things? Is it creative? Is it creating? And the answer is, as of today, we're recording this mid-April 2025. And I'm dating this because who knows where it's going to be tomorrow, right? I mean, we could finish this podcast and everything could be different. That's how fast this industry breakneck pace is going. But as of today, AI is just a reflection of what we give it. And it is the best prediction algorithm, mathematician, scientist on the planet. That's just a way of thinking about what we have with AI. So we're not actually asking it to creatively come up with an idea. When we say that, what it translates to is piece together the next best answer for me. And the more info you give it, the better it can get. And there's some constraints and some things to know there with nuance, but kind of follow along with me here. So when it comes to this kind of a question about where do I trust, how do I trust, how much do I trust, you have to trust with as much information as you give it. No different than if you go to your doctor and you withhold information and you wonder why the medication they gave you is coming back and hitting you, is because they didn't have all the information or anything else. You still have to be the best, catalyst. You have to be the best champion of your own well-being, no matter whether or not you use AI. And I know you preach this, Ben, but especially with AI, if you just give it a little bit of information and you kind of take it seriously, but not really, you have to expect subpar to, nominal results. But if you really give it that information that you're feeling and you refine the preferences and you say, you know what, I don't feel like this today, but I might tomorrow, it'll remember that. And it'll say, okay, we'll give you less of this today, but it won't exclude it from tomorrow. Or I will not ever eat Italian again. I can't believe I said those words out loud. I love Italian myself, but it'll remember that and it won't bring it back up. Versus I want to get on a path to having more Italian in my life, then it'll remember that as well. And you have to find yourself in what matters and what you want to put some time into.
Well, and what's interesting is you bring that up, and it reminds me a lot of way back in the day, like continuous glucose monitors were not really a thing. Like the first 14 years I had diabetes, they were very rare. And if someone had them, they were massive, right? They were probably, I don't know, the size of like an orange, like they were huge. And I'm like, no one wants to wear that. I already have to wear an insulin pump. This is too much. But then once they got smaller and I realized, hey, it's 2013. God, I'm old now. But it's 2013. I'm going to start wearing this and try this. Within a month, I was like, how did I not have this for 14 years? I have all this data access at my fingertips that can inform my dosing and inform my, food choices, etc. And once it's embraced, you're like, you can't go backwards. So I feel like this is one of those inflection points as well with where we are with AI, where if you were to use it, again, don't rely on it for every single solitary thing. Like you have to still have your input with it too. But if you start to use it, you're gonna be like, why was I doing all this extra manual work when I could have had this do all this work for me? And
yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've been saying this phrase for a long time now, I've been an engineer for over 25 years. You can't optimize what you can't measure.
Yep.
And you can't measure what you don't record. Yep. So if you're not actually willing to check receipts or even keep receipts, how do you expect anything to get any better? If you're not looking back to understand what got you to this point, you can't expect tomorrow to be any better than today unless you change that mindset. That's one of the things I love about your message and what you do for everybody that you serve is you're showing them what it looks like to pay attention. And the beautiful thing about AI, if we'll go back to that last thing we were talking about, AI is a reflection of what you give it. So this is now objectively the simplest way to keep track of data, to check your receipts, and to let it be a friend to you if that's what you need, or it be almost a mock coach to you. Like, you said that a couple times, well, why don't we change that direction and do it this way? It can be a pseudo therapist to help you kind of rethink things. You can ask it to treat you with a little bit of a different like TLC or care or the way that the conversation goes. You can ask it to call you out if it sees things that maybe could be a little bit better in your life. There is no right or wrong answer, and it all comes down to what your comfort level is. But everything is worth experimenting. Then you just have to decide what you want to do with it.
And for the people that are thinking, 'cause I know some people are very concerned with where does the data go? Like, hey, this is my personal data, this is my personal life, and I'm telling it about my diabetes. Where does this go? And I actually don't know if I know that answer myself. So I'd be curious. I'm sure you know where it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speak on behalf of a privacy policy for any company. That's not my place. But what I will say is, look, if you have a Google account, Google has access to all this information already, and you're probably still okay. Google, in their terms of service, has for years said, we read your email in order to serve you with the best advertisement that we can.
Jeez.
Like there's remember the whole adage? It's like, if the product is free, you're the product. Like, let's be real. So when it comes to free accounts and things like that, I mean, again, buyer beware, caveat emptor, all the things. Like, you have to be the best champion of not just yourself, but your data. Now, with ChatGPT, again, as of today, my understanding with it, and I've got, You always read your terms of service. It really does matter. It's safe enough for me to say this as of today, from my understanding, to kind of like blur, like to get rid of all the lines here and make sure it's really clear, is that if you tell ChatGPT something on your account, you're signed in, you're on your account, that information stays, let's just say, sandboxed to your email. Very similar to like your emails in your email inbox stay on your account, and they might be on the same server as other people's. They probably will be, but only you can access it. So you have to be careful. You have to make sure that your password isn't the word burrito, which is easily, figure outable. So you have to do the normal good things to protect it. Whatever steps you would do to protect your banking, let's do that with your data too. That's just a good policy. So we get that out of the way. Now with ChatGPT, there really is only one big toggle switch that they have in the system, which is, would you like us to use the outputs of all of the conversations that we're having in order to make our product better? And this is very similar to, like, you've probably seen these little boxes on some websites or on the apps, which is like, we would love to share this information with our developers so we can make our app better if you would like to share your data. That's a good thing for developers, but I understand in the medical space, that might be a turnoff. So yeah, turn off the toggle switch if you just don't want anything that you say to influence anything whatsoever. But very importantly, no data that you put in, again, as of now, my understanding of the privacy policy, lawyers, if you're listening and this has changed or you interpret it differently, I am not here for, to be sued on this. The data that you put in does not go into the public sphere. It does not immediately become available to everybody else using ChatGPT. This isn't like a community forum where if I post it, everybody can see it. That is not how it works. That is a 100% opt-in process that you have to fill out a form that they have to approve, and then they enable that on your account, which means that I want to use this to make not only the product, but the public information that much better. Nobody does that. Nobody I've talked to ever does that. I don't do it. I don't recommend it, because why would you? Right. So it's safe enough. And at the end of the day, they have data retention policies. If you're over it, you don't want to have anything to do with it anymore, delete your account. They redact the data. I think it takes 30 days. I'm not an affiliate. I didn't build ChatGPT. I just wanted to answer it with as much clarity as I could that, what, if you're willing to try, if you're willing to experiment, your data can be pretty safe. I mean, if anybody got access to my ChatGPT account, you'd see some pretty cracked personal stuff in there. I'm still alive. I'm still fine, and I'm good. But, everything within reason and moderation, right? Yep. If you're willing to lean into it a little bit and be a little brave and share some information with AI, but on the outside of it, you get these substantial gains in your life, you get to make that decision. Is it worth it? And I'm not the one to say that it's worth it for you. Like, you have to be the one to make that call. But it's one of those things, like, eventually we're all going to be using this, every single human. But we're like the 1% or less than 1% of humans that are even having these conversations. So doesn't it also kind of feel good to be so ahead of everybody else and realize what can that do for you in life?
Well, and it's wild because, again, like, if I'm thinking back to when I was doing the couple years of PhD research that I did before switching to become a dietitian and learning back in 2014, 2015, only 10% of people were on those continuous glucose monitors, and only a third were on an insulin pump, which now you see insulin pumps everywhere. You see CGMs everywhere. But it really just demonstrates the uptake where I'm like, oh, I thought that this was, a relatively common thing because I was so tapped into the type 1 space. But suddenly I start branching out and I realize, no, that's not the case at all. And I feel like, again, AI is so early learning the stuff now, it's going to change, but I'd rather learn it in its infancy, or at least be using it. And if someone's listening, you're like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, start with just basic surface level stuff. You don't have to talk about your diabetes. You can start with anything. You can be like, hey, give me 5 movie recommendations based on this genre. And I should probably use that prompt myself. So I waste so much time looking for movies, but
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. If you're holding back on using AI because you think the only way you're going to get value out of it is to give it your most personal information, you're absolutely right, Ben. That's the best way that you could say it. You said it better than me, which is just start with the basic stuff. Like, hey, I'm currently dating this person. They said that they like going to scary movies. I'm making this up. I'm happily married and we don't like scary movies. But give me some creative ideas, again, creative, but help piece together ideas and put stuff together from what you've been trained on of ways that we can do something different than go to a scary movie. You'll be blown away by the recommendations that come back from something as simple as that. And then you get to find yourself as like, okay, maybe now actually I do want to share a little bit more how I'm feeling today. The fact that, I feel like I might be regressing, or the fact that actually I'm really thriving right now. So what can I do to celebrate that? I'm not saying swap all your coaching for AI, swap all your therapists for AI, swap all of your support network for AI. Don't do that. What I am saying is that you have a lot of power in your purse, in your pocket now with AI. So are you using that power at all, let alone at, a fraction of what it can actually do for you if you're willing to try it? And that's the reason I love these conversations, is I'm trying to help find ways to just get people willing to try, because then it's up to you. I like the taste of this. I'm going to eat it again. I don't like the taste of it. Never touching it again. That's fine. But if you aren't willing to try it, you may not know you love it. And this is me absolutely sounding like a parent of 2 kids, which is like, can you just try the thing and see if you like the way it tastes?
Well, and that's similar vein, what I suggest to people, like, oh, I'm nervous about this for my blood sugar. If you have a game plan, go in, execute the game plan. If it doesn't go well, you can decide if you're going to try it again, or if you're not. Ideally, you do with a better game plan, but you're never losing. You're constantly winning, or you're learning.
Yeah, you're a functional human being. Of course, you should be nervous about things that are different, things that are changing. I mean, there's things about AI that my, anxiety level starts to go up to, like, wow, I did not see that shift in the industry coming, or whatever. What does that do? That's very real. But the fact that so many like us have the same common things, and they are using it and they are finding these gains, doesn't that give you a little bit more pause and confidence to say, okay, well, if I just got 10% of that, that might be 50% better. And we get to think about, man, am I the only person who's thinking about it this way? And there's always this feeling of like discovery first and frontiersmanship. And, like, wow, I actually found a unique way to make sense of this really complicated thing. What does that do for your mental health? And for me, I love it. If I get stuck now, I'll hop on GPT before I even call like an accountability partner or something else, because I'm just like, can I just like chop this up on my time and see how far I can get it on my own terms? And then I can take it to somebody who knows me and understands the things that I don't even know if I've ever told GPT this, but they can call my blind spots out. I use this as a value add, not as a replacement. And that is my ultimate recommendation, is find the things that you can do with AI as value add. It's not this is going to get me to 100% with, 4% effort. It's, how do I give it 5 or 10% effort and have it get me 90% of the way there? You do the math, that math checks out all day.
Well, and with that too, because I'd imagine you kind of have a good view of what's coming up and what things are looking like. What have you seen? It doesn't have to be diabetes related, but just in health in general, what types of trends have you seen recently that we can kind of look forward to, but also be like, oh, this is going to be wild coming?
Well, I'm not in the medical field at all. So I need to disclaim that. So if I say something to somebody who really does focus on this, please, of course, take what I say and again, find yourself in these stories and these concepts, because this is it's a big space and there's so much nuance to all of it. But a couple of things when it comes to medical. So let's use the example we gave before, which is vision and AI. AI has gotten so good now that researchers and some of these early models that go really detailed, they can take CAT scans, X-rays, CT scans, some of the most detailed, nuanced technology, visuals that we have, and help identify things that trained professionals that have been doing this for decades aren't able to catch, or at least haven't caught at the same level and the same speed, if I can say. So when you think about, you put a lot of trust in your doctor. Absolutely. This is their passion. This is their life. This is what they're best in the world at. So of course I want their advice. So think about this as a way of, you can almost be the best champion of yourself by using tools like this to see if there might have just been something that was missed, but at the same time, backing up rationale. I absolutely love taking authoritative stances from people, or anything that I hear like, this is what we're going to do, or drafts of thinking like, this is what I want to do, and running it through AI and seeing, can we just make it better? Example, I'll give you a non-medical, but a very related example. We're in the process of transitioning my oldest daughter to get her into a different school. And we have to go through this crazy California process where there's a permit and all this mess. And they technically denied her permit to transfer it, but it's warranted. We have everything, lined up. And, I'm putting my emotion of this process aside, and I'm injecting email draft that I was about to hit send. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this, but I kind of don't like this. It's not a bad email. It's just, I think it could be better. And I ran it through AI and I gave it the parameters that I said, I want this to have this theme and feel like this. And I want it to be factual, fill in the blank with missing pieces. Dude, the response that I got was killer. Like I felt like my IQ just jumped just by running it through it. And then I put my little twists on it. And I felt so much more at peace because I realized I sent a more complete email about my case. So again, have you been holding off taking action on things because maybe you just don't trust yourself fully? I'm one of those people. I try to play big, but there's times I play small because I'm just like, I don't know. Would something like this help you feel better about feeling smarter, acting more intelligent? Like these are real human emotions that, we're all human. We have to process ourselves. So there's ways of using vision with AI. I see that as an upward trend to be able to make more sense and understand the information that you're investing in with your healthcare and your healthcare professional. There's feeling better objectively about the way that you're showing up with the people that are looking out for your well-being, like sending emails and communication loops and things like that. And then I think on the data side, like we talked about as well, Oura rings are getting popular. There's a lot of really great ways that people are keeping track of their data, like you mentioned with the monitors and such.
And I'd be curious based on what you've seen too, because this is where I'm thinking, I'm like, could this actually cure type 1 diabetes? Could this cure some of these long-term chronic diseases that people have suffered with for decades, but always seem to be just 5 years away? I was told 5 years away when I was diagnosed in 1999. It's always 5 years from now, 5 years. Like I'm cynical at this point, but do you think AI will have a hand in curing some of these things down the road? Obviously, that's a very loaded question, but curious.
Well, the emotional side of my brain says, hey, dude, you just don't know enough about that level of medical and science to hold enough passionate empathy for all of the nuance that goes into it to come up with a factual answer.
Yeah.
That's the first part of me.
Of course.
The second part of me says, hell yeah, all day. Because again, the breakneck speed that we're evolving with this logical processing of data and starting to find things that we never knew, quantum computing. I won't make everybody go to sleep here and get out to like a quantum computing rant. But I mean, to put it in perspective, I'm going to get these numbers wrong because I don't remember them at the moment. But Google has been pioneering some insane tech. They've been working with these research teams for well over decades. Them alone, they've come up with a chipset called Willow. We've got these new systems in quantum computing that have had such insane breakthroughs. I think it's safe to say that for most humans, me included, it's hard to fathom how ridiculously advanced this kind of technology is. And it's unfathomable to understand what that's going to do for us when it is available to sit on your desk. Right now we process in bits and bytes. And quantum computing processes in qubits, which means that rather than a 0 and a 1 for a bit, it's 0, 1, or both, or none. Like you have the somewhere in between. It's this quantum state of computing. And again, I won't take it more technical than that, other than the simple fact that computing power has gotten like n to the 10th, multiple over so much better. Why wouldn't AI and why wouldn't technology catch up with the things that our brains just can't process fast enough? If it used to take an entire mainframe at NASA, hours or days to process the calculations for how rockets could get into space and then safely return back. You ever watch like Hidden Figures or like some of those movies where they're in their processing and then they're like, calculations complete, we got it. And now a rocket can take off and autonomously return back and get caught by chopsticks. If you ever watch one of the SpaceX things.
I've not watched that, but that's nuts.
You have to watch these things, and not because, say what you will about Elon and SpaceX, and this isn't meant to be political. It's meant to be realistic. It's if we have achieved that level where computers can figure these things out that previously were unattainable, why couldn't we do it with medical? And that's why I don't know enough to answer it on the emotional side with like the understanding of the nuance, but the technical side of me just says game on. Like what better quality of life opportunity is there than this to give us all a better opportunity and quality of life by using technology correctly. I'm here for it all day.
I was going to say, and hopefully like in 2 years or 3 years from now, we're having another conversation where you just cured type 1 diabetes. And you're like, yep, that's right. I just cured this after our conversation.
Yeah, right. I did that with the little quantum computer that I've got sitting on my corner. But that's the thing. It doesn't even have to be me. No. And I think that's the beautiful thing is we're seeing the more that people lean into this, it's attracting smarter people by the second.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be me. It could be you because you know enough in a very specialty niche and you're willing to actually try it, that something goes off in your head and you're like, you know what? I've had this many experts since 1999 tell me the same thing, and that's where they were stuck. What if fill in the blank?
Yep.
That's where innovation happens. It doesn't happen when we're on Zoom and scrolling Instagram. It happens when we give a damn and we care. So that's why I'm so passionate about this topic and trying to get people to find themselves in these stories and understand, okay, that made sense for that example, but how would this work for me? Innovation is coming constantly right now, and AI is empowering everybody to do it so much better. That's what I love so much about this, man.
Well, and I'm grateful we got to have this chat and just go down what I think is a pretty crazy rabbit hole, but I also think people listening are going to appreciate because, to your point, I don't think a lot of people are really understanding, myself as well, right? The possibilities of what this brings to the table. And so if people want to find out more about you or want to connect with you further, where can they find you? If they're like, I need to know about more AI stuff and I need to talk to Jen.
Well, perfectly on brand. I built a digital clone of myself because I was solving a problem. I got tired of having to deny so many people of the whole, can I ask you one question? Can I pick your brain? That whole thing. So I created a digital clone of myself. You can ask me anything from anything I've spoken, taught, recorded, all the 2 years of every newsletter that I've ever written, all of the sessions that I've ever taught, all of the AI tools that I have on my site, literally anything about AI. I made this digital clone because that just made perfect sense. And it's totally free. Anybody who's listening, if you want to check it out, it's at askjc3.com, askjc3.com. You can go just ask JC3 an AI question and it'll pop right back and it'll give you an answer. And I built it in a way where then it can save your responses, and it almost works a little bit like ChatGPT. So you can go back to it. It learns about you too, if you're so willing, and it'll just get better and give you the tech advice that you're looking for. It's my give to everybody. And it's just the way that I love serving and showing what's possible in this space.
Well, and I'm grateful again that we got to have you on this show. Had to have this chat. Like, I was thinking about this for weeks and like, we have to have someone come in, talk about the technology and the capabilities, and you are the perfect person. So thank you so much. And then if you're listening to this, you enjoyed this episode, definitely share it with your friends. And if you're loving the podcast as a whole, give us a 5-star on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening. Appreciate you. And we will catch you in the next episode.
Hope you're ready for the next episode. Hey.